All right, guys. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. I want to do a little commentating on a video that Dan Crenshaw posted here. I believe he posted it on Saturday or Sunday over the weekend, and it's in reference to the response that he's gotten over the last week or so for being publicly for things like the TAPS Act and specifically red flag laws. And I want to kind of play this video. It's a 3.5-minute video. It'll take us longer than that to get through it because I'm going to obviously express my opinion on this issue. But I want before we get into it, I want everybody to understand a few things. One, Dan Crenshaw, he campaigned here in Texas to be a congressman. He's only been a congressman for about 6 months now, 6 or 7 months. He campaigned on the idea that he would be there to protect our constitutional rights, including and especially the Second Amendment. That's what he campaigned on. The second thing I want everybody to understand is what red flag laws actually are compared to what we have today. A red flag law, basically, it puts in a fast lane. Okay, it puts in a fast lane to be able to remove somebody's rights in one way, shape, or form. Either it removes your rights to actually go before a judge or a jury to plead your case before you have your guns taken away, i.e. your Second Amendment rights removed, or it bypasses the judicial system altogether. They just go in and remove the guns first, as Donald Trump famously said back in 2017, we take the guns first and then the due process. Okay, or whether that's just the ability for somebody that should have no bearing on affecting your constitutional rights to be able to make a claim or an accusation that results in your guns being taken and your constitutional rights being restricted. Whatever it is, on some level or another, every single red flag law that's been implemented so far, and every single red flag law that's been proposed on a federal level, on a state level, whatever it is, it removes some portion of due process. Okay, and due process is also supposed to be one of our rights. And when you start to remove either due process altogether or even just remove portions of the due process that we are supposed to have, just inherently because we are citizens of this country, there's a problem there. Okay, every single red flag law, whether it's red flag laws proposed on a state level, a federal level, by Democrats, by Republicans, whatever, it removes some portion of that due process. There are already laws on the books that can remove an individual from a dangerous situation. There are already laws on the books that can remove firearms from someone who may be a danger to others and those around them through actual and proper due process. Okay, there are already laws on the books to take care of these situations. The thing is that government in general doesn't like to be restricted, and when they decide they want something, they want to put laws on the books that help them get it quicker, regardless of whether or not it infringes on your rights. That's what red flag laws are. And third, before we get into this, and I know I'm being long-winded here, our side, the pro-gun side, the pro-Second Amendment side, has been the only side to give. We've been the only side to compromise. Remember, we started in a place where there were absolutely zero gun laws. There were zero restrictions on the Second Amendment. Shall not be infringed, anyone? There were zero restrictions on the Second Amendment. And look where we are today. There are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of gun laws on the books, both federally and at a state level, and even at local levels in places like Chicago and Washington and that kind of thing. Okay? We have been the only side to give. So for people out there, especially somebody who campaigned as a conservative, pro-gun Republican that was going to protect your Second Amendment rights, for anybody out there to suggest, well, we can just do a little bit of something. We can do just a little bit of something because that's what we've been doing for well over 100 years. Our side has been giving and giving and giving, and we've never gotten anything back. So that's what I want you guys to understand before we go into this video. Let's go ahead and just jump right in and listen to what Dan Crenshaw has to say about red flag laws.
Wow, what a week. So earlier this week, President Trump indicated his support for something called red flag laws. I stated on Twitter that maybe we should consider them at the state level. Maybe we should have a conversation about it, and it should be a conversation.
This is leftist speak, by the way. We need to have a conversation. Let's have a conversation. That's leftist speak. That is progressive leftist talk. The fact that he's using it should tell you something about him. This idea that, well, you know, I don't want to restrict your rights or anything, but we should at least have a conversation about these things. That is progressive leftist speak for let's move the ball just a little bit forward. Don't be hateful. Don't be scared. Let's just at least have a conversation about this stuff while they continue to move the ball forward to more government control. So, very disappointing coming from Dan Crenshaw.
Unfortunately, that's not what happened. What came out of it instead was hate-filled comments, lots of emotion, a lot of anger, a lot of memes. A lot of memes, by the way, which could be improved.
That you don't say that unless those memes actually did get under your skin, by the way.
Okay, but that's not the point.
But that's not the point.
The point is that clearly even the words red flag law just emotionally triggered a lot of people.
Of course.
You guys really mad at me.
Because we know what red flag laws are. That's why we're educated and we understand. And you are either ignorant to what red flag laws actually are and what they actually do and how they affect due process, or you're lying. Either way, you're either ignorant or you're lying.
And it seemed that no amount of explanation was able to quell your fears or convince you otherwise, and convince you that somehow the president and I had not betrayed you.
Because, again, we're educated and we know what red flag laws are.
That is not true, of course, and it's
Yes, it
sad that many of you think
Oh,
that.
it's sad that we think that. It's so sad that you think that of us. No, it's accurate, is what it is.
It really is. But I did have some good conversations, some good private
good for you.
conversations with
Good
a
for
lot of
you.
you, and this is what I found out. Clearly, when we say red flag laws, you guys stop listening. You can't hear what we're suggesting, because understandably, you automatically assume that...
First, well, when we say red flag laws, you stop listening. Because understandably, you automatically assume, and he's going to go on to say you automatically assume we mean the leftist version of red flag laws. Because we know what red flag laws are.
We are just agreeing with the left's version of that law. And we all know that the left's version would not be good. It would not protect due process. But as it turns out, that isn't what we're talking about at all.
Here's the thing to understand, okay? There is no left or right version of a red flag law. A red flag law, again, as I explained, puts in an express lane to take somebody's guns away. Whether that's through an accusation by someone or whatever it is. It speeds up the method by removing some aspect or another, if not altogether removing some portion of that due process. That's what red flag laws do. They're not left, they're not right, they just are.
At its heart, what we're talking about is the ability to confiscate weapons when there is clear evidence that violence is about to be committed.
There's already laws in the books that do that. When there is clear evidence that violence is about to be committed, there are already laws in the books that take care of that. Example, here in Harlingen, Texas, not too far from where I live, a person threatened that he was going to go shoot up a Walmart. Guess what? They showed up at his house, took all his weapons, and arrested him. Why? Because it was legal, and they did so with due process. Huh. What do you think about that? No red flag laws needed. Interesting, huh? That's because with due process, you can already do all the things that they want to do. But again, this isn't necessarily about red flag laws or stopping crime. This is about giving the government more power to remove your rights when they see fit.
It's that simple. And this isn't that controversial.
Yes, it is.
What is controversial is how that due process is protected.
You mean restricted. Not protected, restricted.
And I think that's where a lot of these concerns are. Making sure that due process could not be abused is at the heart of any conservative solution.
Let me ask you, due process cannot be abused. Due process either is or isn't. You can't abuse due process. The only way to, again, you can't even abuse it, but I think maybe he's trying to say that due process would be bypassed in some way, potentially, removed in some way, which is, of course, exactly what all these red flag laws do. Due process either is or it isn't. It's not something that can be abused. You can't abuse due process. You can only remove due process. So again, he's kind of talking out of his ass here.
To the supposed red flag laws and our version of what those would look like. I have laid out specific safeguards that would have to be in place for us to support any type of red flag law. Okay, among them would be clear and convincing evidence, punishment for false acts.
Okay, clear and convincing evidence. Already on the books, through due process. You can take somebody's gun away with clear and convincing evidence that they are going to commit a crime. Again, I'll point to what just happened in Harlingen, Texas. It already happens. Now he's going to go ahead and say punishment for false accusations. Again, that's already illegal. Already illegal. Okay, you can already get in trouble for that. But okay, go on. Tell us what else you need that isn't already here, even though it is.
Accusations, right to attorney and cross-examination.
Right to attorney and cross-examination. Again, already on the books. He's describing a bunch of stuff that's already in place to do what he says he wants to do. This makes no sense. Why do you need more laws to do what can already be done?
And limited standing, so that not just anybody can accuse you. For instance, not just a neighbor, not just an ex,
but
it has to be somebody with standing.
Like
maybe a family member, or maybe only police officers.
Oh, so you want us, people who are pro-freedom and liberty, the people who understand what the Second Amendment meant, the people who are anti-government tyranny, you want us to be on board with you saying, well, you know, one of the people who can just blatantly accuse you without due process of being a danger and then take your guns away are the very people that you don't trust. You know, the government, the cops, the jackbooted thugs, or whatever, right? You want people who are pro-freedom and liberty to get on board with your idea of bypassing portions, if not all, of due process by saying, oh, well, one of the people that can accuse you of something to have your guns taken away are the very cops that you don't trust. Yeah. Good point there, dude. Not.
We've got a great study by Cato Institute that lays this out exactly. Here's the thing. I understand your fears about bad red flag laws.
Oh, good, because all red flag laws are bad. They all bypass due process.
Red flag law is a general concept. There can be good ones and there can be bad ones. You should be against the bad ones, as I am. The whole purpose
Show me a good one.
of what the president did and what I am doing.
Show me a good one.
And trying to start a conversation.
Show me a good one that does not, in some way, shape, or form, bypass standard due process for an American citizen. Show me one.
About this is so that we take control of the narrative and propose solutions that actually do protect due process rights.
He's just talking out of his ass at this
ensure
point.
that we aren't on the sidelines when Democrats are proposing blatantly unconstitutional.
Here we go. To ensure we aren't on the sidelines when Democrats are proposing blatantly unconstitutional laws. So your answer to defending against Democrats proposing blatantly unconstitutional laws is to also propose blatantly unconstitutional laws that are just less unconstitutional, right? Not do what you promised to do when you were elected, which is stand up and fight against anything unconstitutional, i.e. something that would remove portions of or all of due process. No, no, no. Don't stand up and defend what we wanted you to defend, what people who voted for you expected out of you. Just come up with something that's it's less unconstitutional. It's not as unconstitutional as they're going to put forth, you know, because we got to do something, right? In the words of the great Nancy Pelosi, right? When asked after the Las Vegas shooting, well, what laws that are being proposed today would have stopped this tragedy from happening? And Nancy Pelosi goes, well, I mean, you know, none of these laws would have stopped it, but we got to do something, which is a ridiculous statement. It makes about as much sense as what he is saying here.
Laws that would not protect due process. The last thing is,
and neither would yours.
No one is saying this is definitely the solution. It's a conversation.
Oh, here's the conversation
come out
crap.
in support of any particular bill or state
gotta have a
law.
conversation.
It's a conversation.
It's a conversation.
Conservatives have actually been having. For
Oh,
a very long
I know,
time.
and that's a shame that conservatives have been having this conversation for as long as they have. Because again, our side is the only side that's ever given in. We haven't gotten more free with our guns in this country since the inception of the Second Amendment. We've gotten less free. Period. Our side is the only side that has ever given in. Period.
Not new at all. And it definitely does not deserve the emotional reaction
It does.
has gotten.
It absolutely does.
We're better than that. Let's be better than that.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway, so that's kind of what I wanted to go over here. Look, Dan Crenshaw is a steaming douchebag. Absolutely, that video was so full of shit across the board. There's I don't even know what to say. It's so blatantly full of copious amounts of bullshit. He is obviously not at all the person he purported to be when he was running for Congress, and the person he pretended to be for the first few months when he would go up and make these grand statements on the floor of the House and all that kind of stuff. He's obviously just another politician who wanted to get himself into a position of power And now we see what he's doing. He's going to be the first one up there to placate to the anti-gunners and to go, well, we got to do something. I mean, the Democrats are going to do worse, so we should at least do this. It's like dealing with the NRA or whoever else. They're like, yeah, we're going to sit here and pretend that we care about your rights, but if we don't do something, if we don't go along to get along in some way, shape, or form, something worse could come along. So we got to do something. So instead of standing up and being the person that he said he was going to be, okay, to stand up and fight for our rights, he's going to placate like a little pussy. That's what Dan Crenshaw is. He's a little pussy who has now bowed down to the politicians around him and to Washington and whatever else is influencing this. He is not the person to stand up for your rights the way you thought he would. He's putting out little videos here on YouTube and Facebook to try and blow smoke up our collective asses as gun owners. But he knows as well as anyone that, first of all, red flag laws are unconstitutional. They remove due process. And they don't help. They don't fix the problem that he claims he wants to fix. So on that note, I will just say, Dan Crenshaw, go fuck yourself.